Self-care is the key to happiness. Self-care will make your hair shine. Self-care is how you lose weight. Self-care is how the Running Man was created. Self-care is how you achieve your goals. And self-care makes trees grow their leaves. And self-care is life. What does self-care even mean anymore? Like, how do I do it? Do I just need a massage? Hello, fellow seekers of the true meaning of self-care. I'm Christy, just an anti-diet dietitian and founder of the hashtag My Diet Rebellion movement. In today's episode, we're going to tell you exactly why self-care is necessary for your success in the transition to an anti-diet lifestyle. And we're going to give you 3 actionable tips for getting your self-care on track. So enjoy and be sure to stay to the end for some outtakes and a few other nuggets of very vital information. Hey everybody, welcome back to the My Diet Rebellion show. My name is Kristen Morgan and I am really excited for my guest today. Her name is Jennifer Rollin and she's an eating disorder therapist at Rockville, Maryland. So she specializes in helping teens and adults with eating disorder issues like anorexia, bulimia, body image concerns. It's a huge one. And she really helps them to discover the role of self-compassion in finding their food freedom and finding their body acceptance. And I think Jennifer is awesome. Kind of been like watching from afar, you know, I'm like kind of like on social media. And then I think I have your post notifications turned on. So for Insta, so you're like popping up. I'm like, ooh, what is she? I know. So I don't know. I was like really excited that she offered to come on and talk about a topic that I think is super important. I know we see the word self-care a lot, almost kind of like, I feel like it's almost kind of become a buzzword. Like everybody's saying it and everybody's encouraging it. And, you know, the thing, and I don't want to say cliche, but the thing I've noticed is that a lot of times when things become buzzwords or cliche or whatever, it's because we hammer them home so much because they're so true and because they are so important. So I really, and in the My Diet Rebellion movement, I've got a section that's called Self-Care That Rocks, because in my own journey to, you know, embracing intuitive eating, if there was one huge lesson I learned was that if I didn't take care of myself, everything else just went to shit. I mean, would you agree?
Absolutely.
You know, so hi, how are you? Do you want to say hello?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm really good. Thank you for coming. What are your thoughts on self-care in the eating disorder or just intuitive eating realm? What are your thoughts just in general?
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, self-care has been really diluted. And while I certainly love like the more basic versions of self-care, and I'm definitely not knocking, like go out and if you can afford it, get a massage, like get your nails done, that stuff is great. However, I think it's become like this very watered down thing, whereas I really want to broaden that idea of like what self-care is, but kind of like you said, I mean, it's essential. I think eating disorder recovery work, intuitive eating work is really hard work. And if you're not taking care of yourself and meeting your basic needs, I think it's going to be nearly impossible.
Yeah, and you're right. You brought up a funny thing is that like it doesn't have this thing of like go get a massage and go get your nails done and I mean, that stuff is nice. But it's like it goes deeper. And this is something I learned particularly after I had a baby, is that when you have a kid, there's no room for like very little room for error. There's like very little room for not feeling good is what I mean. Yeah. Like they don't stop. Even when they're puking, they puke and they go back to playing. And you're like, oh my God, what is wrong with you? You know, it's like they go. So I found that I had to take better care of myself. And like I have some food sensitivities with my lupus. So like there were certain foods that I just avoid for reasons that it doesn't make me feel good, not for diet and restrictive reasons, but for like, hey, I don't feel good. So when I don't, and that was like a thing of self-care for me. I rebelled against it for a while and actually ate all the stuff and all this. But then I started to realize like they really was truly making me feel bad. And that would cascade into everything else in my life. Like I found like if I ate like things with corn, I would feel like garbage for a couple days. And that affected how I interacted with my child and how I interacted with my husband and how I interacted with my work. And it's like, that was a fundamental piece of self-care for me, that like I had to start eating as a way of self-care. I'm kind of rambling, but does that make sense?
Oh, no, I think that's such a great point. And I hear that all the time. I think it can be tricky territory, right? Because some people will use the food sensitivity thing as a means to restrict, whereas other people have genuine sensitivities, like it sounds like you do. And I've worked with clients who've dealt with both. So it's really looking at, I think the distinction I like to make with people is, so let's say you have a real food sensitivity, like for example, to dairy, because that's a common one I see with clients. I think going at it from a restrictive place, it's like, I feel like a bad, immoral person if I eat dairy, right? Whereas for somebody who has made peace with food, it's, okay, well, I know that if I eat this thing, I might be in the bathroom and feel kind of crappy for the next couple of days, but I'm not a bad person. I'm not feeling guilt and shame about it.
Yes, like, and that's a whole nother gentle nutrition. Like, but it's like I'm making food decisions based on caring for myself, and it's that way with anything. So what else? What are some of your biggest tips? Like, the reason I brought Jennifer here today is that she works with people all the time that need to focus on self-care, because self-care, a lot of times our eating just crumbles when all of the other stuff isn't taken care of, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think like the first tip would be with anything that you're trying to work on is to really cultivate that mindfulness piece. So I would encourage someone to do like a self-care audit. And actually in the intuitive eating workbook, there's actually a great self-care checklist where you can go through in all the different categories. It has like spirituality and physical health and like all these different categories. So I think that's really going to be, yeah, whip it out.
I was like looking around. I'm like, I got this somewhere on my desk.
I've had clients do it. It's very comprehensive. It's like early on, I think, in the workbook.
Okay, well, I won't flip through that now, but I will. If for anyone that was wondering, if you're watching the video, this is Intuitive Eating Workbook, and it's by Evelyn Tribole and Elise Resch, and it's got a lot of like just all kinds of like mind-blowing exercises. So that's really awesome. Thank you for that recommendation. So you recommend people do a self-care audit.
Yeah, like look at the different, and it breaks it down in there, but if you also don't have the workbook, you could just look at the different categories of your life. So really break it up. So spirituality, like physical health and wellness, mental health, relationships, because again, we want to broaden the idea of self-care and look at the ways that you can take care of yourself and your own needs within those different categories. So for example, within relationships, maybe there are some people in my life that I need to set some boundaries with. So that might be one example of taking care of myself and self-care.
Right, because maybe setting boundaries with these people will reduce stress in your life or whatever, and anxiety that will make the embracing the intuitive eating process easier because you're not dealing with all of this strife.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you mentioned physical wellness and all relationship wellness, and I'm excited you did, because on the blog in the show notes, Coffee with Christy 005, where I talk about creating self-care plan that rocks. That's what I go through. I have people start to assess the different areas, like relationship wellness and physical wellness and spiritual wellness, because that's where you can start to identify deficiencies that you may not think are connected to food, but they really are
Exactly.
in a lot of ways. So yeah, that's good. I like that. A self-care audit. Check out the blog or check out the intuitive eating workbook to do that. Checking out those different areas, because that's where you can start to set goals. Like people are like, I don't even know how to deal with my emotional eating, right?
Yeah.
I don't even know where to start. I don't even know what's causing it. Well, you start to dig into like what you may see some problems here, and you can start setting goals in that area.
Exactly. And I think the other thing I would say too is that often the way people relate to food is similar to the way that they relate in other areas of their life. So if I have someone, for instance, who is binging and purging, someone struggling with bulimia, like where else in their life or just binging are they not attuning to their needs? Are they overwhelming themselves? So maybe they're overscheduling themselves and then they're shutting down, right? Or maybe they're restricting and then looking at like what other areas of their life are they restricting themselves? So
Interesting.
we can kind of apply that skill there. The other thing I was thinking of as you were talking is kind of, so the first step is the audit, but I think the second step is then really tuning into what for you feels good and doesn't feel good, kind of intuitive self-care, because I think what feels good for one person might like no guideline for like this is the appropriate amount of hours that you should work or amount of hours that you should rest or times you should do this and that. So it's really tuning in for you, like where in my life do I feel overwhelmed, stressed, anxious, because obviously that can then translate onto food, and like what can I do to kind of minimize, eliminate, or reduce some of those specific triggers for me, and how can I up my self-care in those areas as well.
Absolutely. Again, it kind of goes along with my theme of my custom brewed health portion of the My Diet Rebellion movement is custom brewed, like custom.
Yeah.
It's got to be custom to you because you know what? If you don't like strangers touching you, then a massage is not going to be the appropriate piece of self-care. Or, if I'm like drawing a crazy blank, but if it does, you're right. If it doesn't feel good to you, like my cousin runs for
Mm-hmm.
part of her self-care. She loves the runner's high. I hate running. I,
Likewise.
I, I hate it.
I'm with you on the hate running club.
It really sucks to me.
Yeah.
I, so it's like why I wouldn't start running, you know what I mean, to get the high. I prefer step aerobics.
Yeah.
So it's that's very important, is making sure that whatever you do is specific to you. So important.
Yeah.
Because we're not trying to place a whole bunch of rules on you. We're trying to get away from rules. We're trying to get back to what feels good for you. So take all of this, and you always have to keep that in mind, is that it's what's up good for you. So anyways, next, what is your next thought?
Sure. So I think my next thought would be to maybe just another exercise you could do aside from the self-care audit is to make a list of things that fill your like physical hunger bucket and then your emotional hunger bucket. So for instance, if you're someone who's eating emotionally, like looking at other kind of mood boosting things that nourish you, or also another way to go about it is look at like what emotions am I looking to feel or to not feel, or what needs am I looking to get met through food? Because food can meet our physical need of hunger, but it can't meet our other needs in the long term. So looking at some other things that you can add in that might get those needs met.
So your
That
emotional bucket. So instead of filling it with food, give me an example of something else that you could fill it with.
Sure. So a lot of people that I work with who struggle with binging or emotional eating turn to food for that sense of like comfort or companionship, which it will give you that in the very short term, but it will isolate you in the long term because the more you're binging, you're probably not hanging out with people. So looking at, are there some friends that I want to connect with, people that actually energize me and make me feel good to hang out with, that I could reach out to kind of fill that
Yes.
emotional bucket? Or is there like a passion that I have, an activity that brings me joy, like photography or like something else that would fill those emotional needs?
I'm really excited that you said this because I'm going to connect it back to me really quick. I had super bad postpartum depression after I had my little guy, and I gained like
Yeah.
15 pounds, like whatever. I know people don't like to say numbers, but that's just what it was because I just kept eating and eating and eating. I was so depressed.
Yeah.
And like one of the things that started to lift me out of that was I started to paint. Like whenever he would sleep, I would paint. You know what I mean? Like I'm trying to see, like, let me just show, like, I'm just going to show you an example. I'm like going to get up off the video, and I'm like going to show you because this was like really therapeutic to me because I was so sad.
Yeah.
So I did like this.
Oh my gosh, that's actually amazing.
I know. I'm like really excited how it turned out. You show up, you get videos on Pinterest,
That's gorgeous.
images. So like this was something I did because I was so sad and I like
Yeah.
needed something to fill me other than food, I was like, this is not working. So I'm just really excited that you brought that up, because this painting means a lot to me, because I did it at a time where like, I really didn't like my baby, and I didn't, it was really bad. So thank you for bringing that up, because they're just explore it. It doesn't have to be painting for you. It could be reading it. I mean, I don't know, you've seen all kinds of examples. And that was an example of me, filling my emotional bucket when it was like below empty. There was like a hole. There was like my bucket. If you looked in the bottom, there's like this rusty hole, and it was like just completely destroyed. Like there was just so empty. It was crazy.
I mean, postpartum depression, I'm glad you shared that, because you're so not alone in that. And I see people struggling with that in my practice. I mean, it is so rough and intense, and there's so many emotions caught up in that, and feelings of guilt and shame for even having it. So I think first off, I'm so glad that you're talking about it and bringing a light to like people struggle with that. But also, I read a statistic somewhere that said that food can give you a sense of pleasure for about 3 minutes, and then it's gone. And I think, so it's very short term, right? And typically you then feel worse in the long term if you are binge eating or compulsively eating. And whereas some of these other activities, it gives you more that sustaining sense of well-being and happiness, because then you can sit here and look at this finished product and feel proud of yourself. So not only was it therapeutic to probably paint it, also you have this now finished beautiful work that you can share the story around, inspire others. I mean, I think it's an all-around win.
So true. So true. So find, what works for you. 'Cause, it really helped me. Huge. Thinking about my emotional bucket is something that needs to be filled. I mean, I would literally eat, I think, 2 or 3 bags of M&Ms, and like, I'm like dying inside. I was like, I can't, something else has to change. And painting and, little photography and,
no, that's awesome. And I think this is like 3.5. But the other thing that I would add is just really trying to be compassionate with yourself throughout the process, because I think self-compassion and the way we relate to ourselves is a huge piece of self-care. Like, you can be doing all the things, you can be taking all the bubble baths and setting all the boundaries, but if you're criticizing yourself and bullying yourself all day long, that is emotionally exhausting.
Yes. I would love to see a statistic or a program that proved that beating yourself up helped advance your life. If that existed, somebody show me, because it is yet to be discovered. It's just, if that's one thing, because I'm in the trenches with this, with me and my clients and my listeners and my people, is that it's like, I always tell myself, eating, like trashing on myself really never got me to where I wanted to be. Why am I doing it?
Yeah.
Like, why are you doing it? Like, it's proven to not work. Like, why are we doing this? And that's kind of helped to lift me up, because sometimes people are like, oh, well, you're right. It never really did get me anywhere.
Yeah.
And self-compassion is so big, and that's something we could talk about for hours.
Yeah, I won't get off on that tangent, because Lord knows I could talk about self-compassion all day long. But honestly, I think the first step is that so many people are really mean to themselves. Like when I first start working with people, but they have no idea that they're mean to themselves because they're so used to it. They're not even noticing or separating out whether it's an inner eating disorder voice, inner critic, whatever it is for them. They're not even seeing a distinction. That's just part of them. So I think even starting to notice like some of the things that you say to yourself, but I 100% agree with you that like people have tried to say to me that their self-criticism is motivating. And I'm like, there's just no research to prove that. And if you picture like a little kid and somebody saying the things that you say to yourself to that little kid, tell me how that's going to motivate that small child, because it will not.
It will not. And I'm like, the other thing I say is like, okay, so if talking bad worked, why are we here? Like if talking bad to ourselves worked, seriously, if diets worked, if beating ourselves up for motivation worked, why are we here talking about all this or sitting here? Why am I sitting here concerned about this stuff? It's because it doesn't work. And it's a tough message to swallow when you believe, like I did for a long time, that if you can lose the weight, all your problems will be changed. It's a tough pill to swallow. And I've gotten better at it myself. I just have. I started getting pissed off at the pants instead of me. Like I ordered
That's
pants.
beautiful.
This is the last thing before we kind of wrap up, is that I was like, you know what? I am so tired of wearing pants that don't fit. Like I love leggings, but sometimes I just want a pair of jeans. That's just the way that it is. So I ordered a size 20. I don't even remember what it was. We're not even going to talk about sizes. I ordered my size that I currently am from Lane Bryant. It came and it didn't fit. And I was like, I know this is my size or whatever, but I'm like, this is stupid. Like, no, I'm not going to start trying to lose weight to get into these dumb pants I just paid for. I'm just going to go get the pants that I want to fit. And now, because then I'll feel better about myself, continue to make healthier choices. I got a pair of jeans that fit, and I will be so much further along than if I tried to spiral back and fit into these stupid pair of jeans that I ordered.
Well, I have so many thoughts.
Yeah.
And I will not get on a rant about it, but like, first off, like screw clothing sizes. We know those are arbitrary, like completely every store just like makes up random numbers. And then we put so much of our worth and value to like, Lord knows, having to go up a size. And, of course, I speak from a place of like having thin privilege. So I totally want to acknowledge that and get that. But like, I also went up a pant size recently. And to me, I was like, you know what? In the past, this would have been like the biggest thing. And I would have been beating myself up. And this time I went out and I bought before was wearing like Forever 21, like very like $12 jeans. I went out and bought like very nice high-end pants in the new size and was like, I'm very happy. Like, again, it's shifting that mindset of like, there's something wrong with my body, that it's changing, or that, that these whatever arbitrary pant size brands don't fit. It's such a waste of mental energy, and no one is going to be like, she was a size 24 versus a, like 25 or 26. Like nobody gives a crap. Unless they have no life and no hobbies. So it's a huge waste of mental energy for nothing.
I love you. I think you're awesome. God, I think we could. I'm gonna have to have you come back sometime, because I feel like we could just go on and on and on about this. So like I said, I'm trying to keep these shorter so people can digest them and move on with their lives. And so I want to just kind of wrap it up here and say thank you. Can you just do a very brief recap of the 3 tips there was?
Okay. I just made them up on the fly, so now I'll have to remember. But it was audit of your current self-care habits.
Yep.
And it was mindfulness of like what specifically works for you, and kind of looking at, I think that was number 2, mindfulness of your personal needs. Number 3 was like physical versus emotional hunger bucket, with a side order of self-compassion. Yeah,
with a side, with a 0.5, with a to be continued, because that's another topic. So I know people are like, what am I going to talk about? Like, I don't know. We're just going to talk, just going to wing it. So thank you. Check out, is there anything you want to tell people about? Any kind of programs, webinars, anything that you want to direct people to in the show notes?
Sure. Yeah. I have a webinar on healing from body hate and practicing self-compassion, which I think would be applicable. So I'm happy to give you a link to that.
Okay. Awesome. So I'm going to put all of Jennifer's stuff in the show notes. And it's, oh God, hang on a second. My Diet Rebellion. I was like, oh my gosh, what's the page? It's mydietrebellion.com. And that's where you can find all of the pages for the interviews we've done. You'll see Jennifer's information there. And I'm going to link to a really awesome webinar that she's done for Making Peace. Seriously, guys, check this out. Like, she's the bomb. So, I mean, she knows what's up. Follow her on Jennifer Rollin on Insta.
Jennifer_Rollin. Like Rollin.
Is it Rollin? Don't tell me it's Rollin.
No. It's all good. Everybody says Rollin or Rollins or Rollin. So like nobody says Rollin on that. Like I'm so used to it. I just filter it out. Honestly.
I'm really sorry.
No. You're good.
Okay. Rollin. You're right. That makes more sense phonetically. So with no S on the end. So check it out. And I will put all the info there, and hopefully we'll talk again soon. So thank you so much for coming. Appreciate all your time. Just epic wisdom.
Aw, well, thank you for having me. You're awesome, and let's connect again soon.
I will. Thanks. Bye.
I don't care.
Okay, I always pull like stuff out of videos where I'm like, oh my God, I'm an idiot. Hey everybody, welcome back to am I recording? I'm recording.
Otherwise I get a little bit of thoughts.
And you're like, hello.
Hi, how's it going? Recording live from Washington, D.C. Signing.
Like I said, thank you for coming. Can you hear my child screaming?
You remember like all these other people, people I look up to, and I'm just like,
I would have shit my pants.
Yeah, it went well.
That's good.
Feel the fear and do it anyway.